This video will show you how to replace the cooling fan assembly on a Mitsubishi Lancer. This will be located along the front of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. To remove the fan from under this area, we're going to have to dislodge our radiator hose from the radiator. So with that said, we have to drain our coolant. So with that said, we want to carefully make sure that the cooling system is cool to the touch. You never open it when it's hot. Take hold of your cap and turn it counterclockwise. Lift it up and away from your face in case there's any pressure. Just have a quick peek. We're confirming there's no damage to that cap. If there is, you want to replace it. Now to get to the coolant drain plug, we're going to have to make our way under this area. So let's start by dislodging the air inlet tube leading to the air filter housing. Along the front portion here, you're going to find that you have an area for two plastic push clips. One of ours is missing, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove the one that is in place. For that, I'm just using a trim tool. We'll take hold of this tube, gently lift up, and pull it straight forward and away from the air filter housing. We'll set that aside. Now, as far as this plastic panel, you're going to find that you have several push clips to dislodge, and along the front, there is some locating tabs that slide into the bumper cover. We're focusing on the push clips. As far as the push clips on this vehicle are concerned, we're gently lifting up on the center to unlock them, and then you should be able to remove the outer portion as well once it is unlocked. A quick inspection of each one of these as we continue on, replace them as necessary. Now we can take hold of this. We're going to start sliding it. Looking along the front area of this, we can see those locating tabs making their way all the way across. I mentioned them. We'll go ahead and set this aside. Now as we look down this passenger side front corner, all the way down at the bottom of the radiator, this is where we can see our drain plug. We have a collection receptacle under this area, so we can collect and recycle all fluid properly. We'll be turning this counterclockwise. Fluid will make its way out. Typically, you won't see anything from up in this area. It's going to come out down along the bottom area. There we are. Now that the coolant has finished draining, I'm back down at that drain plug and I'm turning it clockwise to close it up. Make sure that's tight. Of course, you want to make sure you clean up any mess in this area as we continue on. Let's start dislodging the upper radiator hose from the radiator in this top passenger side corner. It has a squeezable clamp. For this, I'm going to be using some hose clamp pliers. You can also use regular pliers if you find it necessary. I'm try to grab onto the ears here. They are, of course, tucked underneath where I can't see them. If you find your coolant hose is stuck in place on the radiator, carefully use a hose pick to break it free. Be extremely careful not to cause any damage along the way. There we are. Once that's out of place, just give it a quick squeeze. We're making sure it's soft and pliable, same as we would do with any other hose. Now we have the coolant overflow tube leading up to this area. We're just going to gently separate that. Typically it will slide out of place. You know what to do, quick squeeze on that. We'll dislodge this across the fan assembly. We're going to make sure we tuck this in up nice and high so the coolant reservoir will not drain. If you are looking underneath this area, there's a small plastic bracket attached to our fan assembly, and that's held in place with a 12mm headed mounting bolt. We're going to remove that mounting bolt and separate this area. You can use some penetrant for good measure. 12mm down in this area. Once you have that bolt out of there, we should be able to carefully lift this straight up and out of position. As we make our way along this side here, let's also dislodge this hose from the fan assembly. It should slide out of place. Now we'll take this entire hose assembly and lift it up and out of position out of our way. Now we're looking down at the fan itself. We have electrical wiring harnesses leading across it. Now we don't have to disconnect this electrical connector down here. This is an extension wire. You can see it's connected in right along here. We'll disconnect this. It has a locking tab. Squeeze it in, slide it out of place. Quick inspection for corrosion, of course. The wiring harness just slides into this area, fairly simply slides out of there. You saw how it happened. As we make our way down here, we have our next electrical connector. Same thing as before, squeeze in on the tab, lift it out of place. I'm going to carefully use my trim tool, attempt to make my way in between and gently separate it. There we are. Let's take hold of that harness. We're pulling it away from the fan assembly. You're going to find you have another mounting point over here. Trim tool. Let's get it out of there. Set that wiring harness off to the side. Along either side of the fan, you're going to find that there is locking tabs holding it in position to the radiator. You can only lift this up so far. To be able to remove it, it's going to hit up against this bar. So with that said, we're going to continue on with removing this cross member, making its way up and across the top of the radiator and fan assembly. There's several pieces of hardware. Prior to removing any hardware holding this in position, we have to start with the electrical wiring harnesses making their way across. So we have our electrical connector here. This connector leads to our hood latch. It has a locking tab. For this one, I found that it's easiest if I just use a pick on the opposite side of the locking tab where I typically squeeze. I can gently pry. When I'm prying, it should slide out of place. I'll just give that a quick inspection as always. We're going to start separating this from this panel as well. In my experience, to separate this, you're going to find you have a hard time prying it away. We're going to carefully use our small pick along the back side here. Now there is going to be a small locking tab. I'm going to try to make my way under. We'll gently pry, and this should slide out of place. There we are. It's fairly difficult to see that tab, but you can see it right along here. I just press on it. We'll pry the rest out of place using my trim tool. Set that wiring harness aside. Now front and center, just below where our hood latch is, you're going to find another wiring harness. This one leads over to your horns. We don't need to disconnect the wiring harness from the horns, we just need to dislodge the wiring harness along the way. Just continue on with my trim tool. There we are. Now the rest of this portion we can leave down in this area. Staying down in this area, we can start removing some of our mounting bolts. We can see these 3 10mm headed mounting bolts. We'll remove all of them. Now up across the front of this area, we can see where the bumper cover attaches to the body of the vehicle, so we're going to remove all 4 of those 10mm bolts as well. Now we have plenty of movement from the bumper cover. If you are looking along the inboard corner, along the top of your headlamp assembly, you're going to find that you have a 10mm bolt holding it to this cross member, making its way across the vehicle. You have one for each headlamp. Remove the pair. We'll just do the same for the other headlamp assembly. Now you're going to find that you have 4 more bolts holding this in place. You'll have two on either side of the vehicle that we're going to remove, and when we do go to lift this up, we want to be aware we do have a wiring harness making its way across here. We don't want to cause any damage to that. Now we can start carefully lifting this up. As I mentioned, there is a wiring harness. We don't want to cause any damage to it. See if we can flex this out of position. We'll start separating our fan assembly from the radiator. If you were looking along the inboard side or the engine side, you're going to find that you have locking tabs on either side of the fan and radiator assembly. Now, if you were looking down along this fan assembly and radiator, here we can see one of our locking tabs tucked up in here, and then we have a second one right down here. We have to be pressing both of these in, and we can gently lift up on one side of the fan. Once you have it slightly dislodged, go over to the other side and do the exact same thing. Now I'm pressing that. I'll make my way down to the next one. There we are. We've got one side lifted. We'll do the same to the other. Now, looking at our original fan assembly, there is one thing that we have to transfer over to the brand new fan assembly, and that's this wire connector leading over to our motor. We'll start up at the connector area. You'll find that this does not slide out of place. You're going to have to use a small pocket screwdriver or pick and make your way deep inside this area. You're going to be feeling for a locking tab. I'll show you what it looks like in 1 second here. So there's that tab. I made my way under, gently pried. Slides out of place. We're down in this area next. That should slide right out of there. And now we have our electrical connector down here. We have one locking tab. Just go ahead and squeeze that in and lift it up. Now we have our brand new fan assembly. We're going to start with our electrical connector here. The gray portion is going to press on to the fan motor. Line it up, press it in. We're listening for a click, a light tug. We'll secure that wiring harness in its mounting point here. Slides right in. Now we have our connector portion. That's going to slide onto this area. Press it on there. Double check to make sure that's secured, and let's get this in the vehicle. Now we can install our fan assembly. As we bring this into position, we have 4 locking tabs, 2 along each side of the radiator. Just going down nice and low here. Press this up against the radiator. Now when we go to align this, we want to start it on either side. Once you have one side started, go ahead and do the same on the other. After everything's aligned, lock it in by pressing it down. Okay, this one's started. My way over here. Okay. Now let's latch it in. Audible click, a light tug, it's secure. Now it's time for the upper radiator support, the crossmember. If you were looking along this, you're going to find that you have 2 more of these rubber mounts, one on either side. Those are going to slide over the locating tab on the radiator itself. We'll carefully start bringing this down into the proper positioning. Now, as we start bringing this down, there's a few things that we want to pay attention to. The bumper cover has to make its way over these brackets, all the way along this panel. Also, down along the center area, we have this larger bracket. This portion of the bracket is going to slide over the bracket that's attached to that front bumper. With all that said, let's gently flex this and get it into the proper positioning. Try to come in at an angle. There we are. You can see that I have this settled in the proper positioning. I can see all of my mounting bolt ports are in the proper position, and I also have my alignment tabs that are from the radiator protruding up and through their rubber mounts on each side. Now we're starting in our outer hardware first here. You have 2 10mm bolts along either side. After you have both sides started in, go ahead and snug them up. Now we're going to make our way down to the mounting point for our headlamp assembly into this crossmember bracket area. Once you have each of those 2 bolts, one for each side, started in, just go ahead and snug them up. We're down in the center next for our center mounting bracket. Go ahead and start in all 3 of those 10mm headed mounting bolts and then snug those up. Before continuing with any more mounting bolts, while we're in this area, let's make sure we resecure our horn wiring harness. We're making our way over towards where the horn is, of course. Latch it in right up along here. And then, of course, press this into the locked position as well. After our audible click, just a light tug there, confirming it's secured. We'll continue on. Across the front of your front bumper cover, you're going to find that you have areas for 4 mounting bolts. One of ours broke during the removal process, which is common. We'll continue on to the mounting bolts that we do have to install. And there should be one right here. Now we have this electrical wiring harness, which leads over to our hood latch wiring harness. We're going to make sure we secure this along the way, just pressing it into this panel. Now, as for the electrical connector, we're going to slide it onto its mounting point. We'll just give it a light stretch here and slide it in. Audible click, it's secure. Latch it in. Now we have the wiring harness for our fan assembly. We're going to, of course, start with our mounting point along the driver's side. Press that in. Now that I have that pressed in, I'm making my way up and over the top of this area, and I'm going to bring it down into its securing point along here. Now we have our connector for our fan. Just go ahead and line that up and we're going to press it in. We have our audible click. We have our next connector that's going to make its way down to the next portion of the fan here. Audible click, a light tug, and of course we'll secure that wiring harness into its mounting point. We'll just double check to make sure this isn't hanging down in a way where it can potentially get damaged by the fan. We have our coolant hoses next. One of your coolant hoses, the smaller of the 2, is going to slide directly inside of this ear along the fan assembly. Now we're going to bring this down into the proper positioning. As we bring this down, we're trying to slide it in, but we also need to align our mounting bolt port. We have our 12mm mounting bolt. Just go ahead and start it in and snug it up. Bottomed out, just a tiny bit further there. We'll attach the upper radiator hose to the radiator. Just go ahead and slide that on as far as possible and reattach the clamp. We want to make sure we have the clamp in the same original position as where we had to remove it, and make sure we can see coolant hose on each side of the clamp. There we are. Make sure it does not slide off. Now we have our overflow hose. Just go ahead and line it up with its mounting point along the side, and then bring it all the way over to this upper portion where the fill port is. Now that I have it on there, we're just going to make sure it's nice and tight. You do not want this sliding off. Now we have our upper plastic protective panel. As you remember during the removal process along the front, you have several alignment tabs. Those are going to slide into the front bumper cover area. So for this, we're just going to come down. We'll align our tabs, press it forward, double check to make sure it feels as though it's secured across the front, and then we'll continue on with our push clips. Start installing these push clips. When installing push clips, you want to start driving in the outer portion and then lock them in with the center. We've got the one for the center. It's just a tight fit here. We're going to skip these two, make our way all the way down to the far side, just in front of our battery. Now we have the air inlet tube. That's going to slide into this area of the air filter housing. We'll rest the forward side down into the proper positioning. You should find that your two mounting points are aligned in this area, and that's for the plastic push clips. There should be two of them. Our vehicle has one. It's missing one. Now it's time to fill the cooling system. You can either use a specialty tool or you can use a funnel that looks like this. We're going to be using the manufacturer's specified coolant. Now, once we do start the vehicle, we're going to turn it right back off after approximately 5 seconds so we can triple check our belt, confirming it's seated properly so we don't cause any damage. Assuming it is, go ahead and start the vehicle and let it run. We want to try to remove any air from inside the cooling system. Now, I just turned off the vehicle. I ran it until the cooling fans turn on. At that point, the engine should be at normal operating temperature, the thermostat opened, and the coolant can circulate throughout the entire system, removing any air. Now I can remove my funnel. We'll make sure we reinstall our coolant cap, turning it clockwise until it's completely locked down. Okay, friend, we've got our vehicle back together and we've topped off our coolant. The next thing you need to do is make sure you clean any mess, double check for leaks, and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.